This is a CHGO Fire emergency podcast. What a big day. The Fire are building a stadium. Lots of exciting things to talk about. Let's get into it. This is a CHGO Fire emergency podcast presented by Sunnyside. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases when you enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only for 21 and older or Illinois medical card holders. Thank you for joining us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alex Campbell, and it is a big day. This is a day that the Chicago Fire as a team and Chicago Fire fans have been waiting for a very long time because it is official. The Fire are going to be building a soccer-specific stadium in Chicago. To react to and break down that news, I'm joined by somebody who's very much on the beat of Chicago sports teams and their plans and shenanigans when it comes to stadiums. Kevin Wells of CHGO Cubs and WGN Radio. Kevin, welcome. Great to have you along.
Yeah, what's up, Alex? I like that. Plans and shenanigans, huh? Yeah, this is quite the story. And I know that you have some details that you'll want to share about it. But yeah, this is certainly something that seems a lot closer to crossing the finish line than previous stadium plans and other developments that were pitched for this land in the 78 there in the South Loop. So this does seem like it's got a little bit of momentum behind it. And we just talked to the mayor and he seems to be behind it as well. So obviously nothing's done just yet. There needs to be, you got to go through the political process of it. You got to get the TIF money approved for infrastructure. But I think the biggest thing here is it's a privately funded stadium, right? Here's $650 million. Let's get it done. Let's bypass a lot of these hoops that we're seeing the Bears go through now, that we're seeing the White Sox go through now. Let's kind of get past all of the stuff that's going to slow us down. Here's the money. Let's try and get it done, get the shovels in the ground as soon as we can. And props to the Fire. We'll see if they get it done.
Yeah, they certainly have a bit of a proof of concept here. Obviously, the Endeavor Health Performance Center, which is located exactly 1.5 miles straight west down Roosevelt from the stadium site. They got that built with private money, and that took maybe more politicking than this stadium land even took, given some of the details about what that land had previously been zoned for. But yeah, let's get to the big headline numbers and details for those who aren't familiar. Stadium, as you mentioned, on that 78 lot, it would be just southwest of the intersection of Clark and Roosevelt. Current plan is for 22,000 seats. We've seen some fans be a little underwhelmed by that number. We can get into that more if we want. As you mentioned, it's entirely privately funded, an estimated cost of $650 million, and it is scheduled to open ahead of the 2028 Major League Soccer season. It's kind of crazy having to think this would be the first completely newly constructed stadium in my lifetime, I believe in your lifetime as well, given that the last time a Chicago team built something new, it was the United Center in New Comiskey Park, opening about the same time in the first couple of years of the 1990s. There hasn't been construction of any sort like this since the questionable Bears renovation back in 2004. Like this is not the sort of thing that comes around that often. And as you alluded to, in Chicago in particular, getting something like this built is not easy.
It still kind of blows my mind to this day that this piece of property in the South Loop has been undeveloped for as long as it has. This is a gold mine opportunity for any team that wants to move into this area, and the Fire pounced on it. It's going to be cool because not only are you going to see a soccer stadium there, not only is it going to be just south of the heart of downtown, this is going to be a place for fans to congregate. This is going to be, it's close to UIC. It's going to be places where the community can gather. There's going to be, concerts, restaurants, all sorts of things that are going to be right near the center of downtown Chicago. And why is that important? Well, that's where a lot of the tourism goes. That's where the economic engine of the state of Illinois is in. So it's it's going to be more than just a stadium. And I think that that is the reason that Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson said just moments ago that he likes this idea, because it's a public-private partnership that benefits the entire city. There's going to be money that comes in from tourism. You're not building in an area that is not known for tourism. And truth be told, I'm surprised how quickly this seems to have come together. And I think you mentioned something about that this has been in the works for a little bit here. But
Yeah,
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that, like when this conversation really got rolling, because today was the announcement. And it's like, hey, here's where we are. It seems like there's been a lot of progress behind the scenes.
so my understanding is that sketch that people are seeing today that's been going around, that sketch was done late last fall, early winter. We saw
Yeah.
Chicago President of Business Operations Dave Baldwin posted some pictures today of him, Joe Mansueto, and MLS Commissioner Don Garber surveying the site. Definitely, it looks like in the winter they are wearing coats and scarves and gloves, and so this has been going for a while. The Fire have not kept a secret about this, that there was kind of a multi-step plan here. The former step was the training center that they got done and got built. So no, I think Joe Mansueto, I think both as a guy who is not new to this, again, he is a Chicago guy. He founded a business in Chicago, ran that business in Chicago for 3 or 4 decades. And again, he knows the deal, and he's also, as a sports owner, he's watched the Bears put out these statements to the public that don't really have a whole lot behind them in the way of details or commitments or anything really. And I think they wanted to really be sure that when they made this announcement that they had pretty much a green light. So I guess, to put it another way, they could have released something months ago, but it would have been like, hey, we have all this other stuff to go through first. And an advantage of being not in the center of the media spotlight is you can move quietly. You everything you do isn't going to be under a microscope. And then, having the wealthiest owner in Chicago sports, and by a pretty fair margin, in Joe Mansueto, doesn't hurt either.
And it was interesting to hear Mayor Johnson specifically name drop Mansueto and say, this is the type of leadership that I need from billionaires and millionaires in the city of Chicago, because there's a lot of millionaires in the city of Chicago, and you can get a lot done when there's that benefit coming from the investment from the people who have the money to do so. And then what comes along with it is public money, which I know that the catchy headline is, oh, he's paying for it himself. He's going to pay for the whole stadium himself. And that is technically true. The whole stadium will be privately funded. But if you go look at the 78 right now, and you go walk past it or take the train to it or whatever, that land is nowhere near ready for anything. It needs to be developed. That's where the city will come into play. If you can put down the money to pay for your own stadium, there seems to be a little bit of push with this administration that says, hey, we're going to play ball with you. We'll give you, probably up to $100 million, maybe more, to start to develop that land and start to get, the types of things that you're going to need in terms of water, electricity, public transportation, roadways, signs, all of those things that are going to need to go, all the nitty gritty stuff that you can think of that can go into getting people into the actual stadium. But if the benefit is large enough, which it seems to be, a brand new state-of-the-art soccer stadium in the middle of Chicago, that's not going to just attract people from here. That's a global, soccer's a global sport. You don't need me to tell you that. That's going to attract a lot of people from everywhere. That's why the city can look at this and say, okay, this is worth an investment to us, because it's going to be more than just a soccer stadium. We're going to make this a giant mega development with stores. There's going to be restaurants. There's going to be a river. It's right on the river, literally. This is where the water taxi drops you off. If you've ever taken, a water taxi over there. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, this probably gets the Riverwalk extended all the way down there, you'd have to think, which has been a thing that's been kicked around forever with the question of, yeah, but where does it go? And the answer is going to be, this will be where it dead ends. Oh yeah, it's got all that going for it. It's just a really unique opportunity. This week, the U.S. men's national team is training at the Fire's new training center, because the Fire now have one of the state-of-the-art facilities in the country. Same's going to go for the stadium. It's going to be one of the state-of-the-art facilities in the country. So, whether it's the U.S. men or women will play games there likely, or you can attract friendlies with other teams. Heck, we know how much the Mexican Federation loves playing games at Soldier Field. Maybe they have a use for it as well. So yeah, and I think it's also worth comparing to some recently built stadiums of this ilk, these soccer-specific stadiums around Major League Soccer. The largest of the recent developments is Geodis Park, that's down in Nashville. That seats 30,000, which I think is maybe where some Fire fans are thinking is 22 too small. You've got TQL Stadium in Cincinnati, has a max of 26, but I believe they operated at a lower number than that. St. Louis is 22,000. BMO Stadium in LA is 22,000. So if fans aren't familiar with these, if you look up St. Louis City SC and their stadium in St. Louis, and I would also advise you to take a look at lower.com field in Columbus in terms of if you want to picture what we're talking about here in terms of vague architectural style and size, those would probably be the best comparisons of what we're looking at here. And I think, Kevin, we do have to, though, state the obvious thing here is that the reason the Fire can do this and the Bears or the White Sox can't is it's a question of money. I mean, Joe Mansueto, he founded and operated Morningstar, a financial services firm, for a very long time. He sold that right around the time he bought the Fire. And that gives him a liquidity that, the McCaskies have owned the Bears since the 1920s, and that's the family business. And Jerry Reinsdorf has a lot of money, but, it's not on this kind of level. And I think it's unavoidable to make the comparison when you've seen the Bears and the White Sox sniff around requests for public money, and then the Fire can look a lot better just in comparison to that because they don't have to ask that question.
In terms of Jerry Reinsdorf, I'm really not sure, and I don't think I know a lot of people like to, he's kind of a lot of people like to go at him and say, pay for it yourself, pay for it yourself, pay for it yourself. And while I don't disagree with that rhetoric, I'm not going to pretend to know how much money Jerry Reinsdorf has, because the Reinsdorf family is sinking almost $1 billion of its own money into the 1901 project at the United Center. So they have money, they're using it. They're going to make the United Center a whole type of entertainment district. There's going to be a concert venue there. There's going to be bars, restaurants. They're basically taking that model that we're seeing across the country and putting it over there. So yes, the White Sox wanted almost $1 billion in public funding for a stadium at the 78. In this type of economic environment that Illinois is in which they just passed a $55.2 billion budget on Sunday, but cuts were crazy. And, they had to, there was no appetite for funding a public stadium. That is the exact quote from, House Speaker Welch and Governor Pritzker. There's no appetite for that. We can't afford that right now. It's not going to happen. So basically, there's still room for them at the 78. They said as much today. They're still having conversations with Related Midwest about the Fire moving there. That's great for them. There's still room. It's 62 acres. It's a big piece of land. They can definitely fit a baseball stadium in there, but they're going to have to bring up their price tag. They're going to have to put more money into it. And same for the Bears. The Bears didn't come to the table empty-handed. They came to the table with $2.2 billion for a stadium on the museum campus downtown Chicago. But there's a whole bunch of other loopholes that they're going to have to try to get over, and roadblocks with Friends of the Park and everything else. And quite frankly, you need more money to do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much money the McCaskies have. The Bears are in the NFL. The NFL is king. The Bears are worth, I believe, $7 billion. So the money is probably there, but you got to it's got to be a good deal for both sides. And I don't know how much either, ownership group technically has to spend, but Mansueto clearly has the money and said, listen, this is an investment I want to make. And let me tell you, it's a good investment because it's one of the hottest pieces of property that nobody's been able to develop for whatever amount of time, mm-hmm. which is it's the craziest thing because it's right in the South Loop, right on the river. Once stuff goes up there, people are going to say, how was nothing ever built here before? I mean, it's going to be a moneymaker for the city of Chicago and the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, absolutely. Worth also noting here, Chicago Fire owner Joe Mansueto did release a statement today. If you want to go to dearchicago.com, he's got a statement and a whole big FAQ section that covers just about anything you could think of. But But to read at least part of this quote from Mansueto, quote, "Chicago is where I built my business, my family, and my life. And while I never set out to own a professional sports team, when the chance came to purchase the Chicago Fire in 2018, I couldn't pass it up. Soccer is the world's game, and a world-class city like ours deserves a world-class club with a world-class home to match. This project is more than just a stadium. It's a space for fans of all ages, backgrounds, and neighborhoods to come together and celebrate the beautiful game right in the heart of our city. It's about investing in Chicago, not just on match days, but every day as a committed community partner. The Chicago Fire is a club on the rise, and soon we'll have a permanent home that reflects the passion, energy, and pride of the city we love." Yeah, because to your point about it being an entertainment district, in Major League Soccer, you are guaranteed 17 home matches a year. The Fire want to be want to be a playoff team continually, and so they want to be in a place where they're penciling in 20 home games a year. But man, beyond that, again, there's 345 other days of the year that you can use this space for, and again, that's what the key is going to be when you talk about the ways this is going to make money for everybody involved.
And how are they going to get that done, right, during negotiations with Mayor Brandon Johnson, who is, if you've learned nothing from a Brandon Johnson press conference, he is all about investments into the youth movement of Chicago. So in those types of conversations, when there's not a Fire game going on, youth camps, let's have youth sports there. There's got to be a community benefit to it. And no doubt that has been a part of these conversations, or else we wouldn't have heard the mayor so optimistic today on his press conference that he does every week with the beat reporters. He was asked about it constantly and says it's got to be about the public-private partnership. It's got to be, let's do more of what Mansueto is doing. Maybe he went as far to say as maybe, and this is just his opinion, that maybe this plan could be the model for other sports owners in town, and that there's no reason to leave the city of Chicago right now because there's so much investment in it. He believes it's growing. Now, take it with a grain of salt. He's the mayor of Chicago. He has to say those things, right? But this does seem to be the start of something in that property. And this seems to be the best offer per se. And the Fire want to get shovels in the ground in the fall. I mean, you talk about an aggressive approach. We're sitting in June right now. So 3 months till fall, 4 months till fall. You're going to have to find a way to get through city council and try to get the TIF money, which, there's a fund of about $450 million in TIF funding that is for that district. So you're going to have to try to tap into that. And then that'd be used for moving some train lines around. The Sun Times has a good write-up on this. You're going to need to move some train lines around. You're going to need to install new sewer systems, electric, all those types of things. But listen, the other benefit of this, like you said, the entertainment district portion of it, if the White Sox in fact can get a stadium there too, you're talking about a major multi-billion-dollar every year investment into the city of Chicago, and every mayor is going to say yes to that every single time.
Right, and to the point about fitting both stadiums, that lot is huge. The Fire are taking, I think it's going to be about a third of it is what's included in this purchase. And so then if you assume the White Sox would need about the same amount of space for a building, and then you can think about other things, whether it's underground or above ground parking or other entertainment district space. There's lots of other things you can do there. But yeah, you mentioned it earlier, the 1901 project around the United Center, kind of a similar deal. It's, an example of, hey, we have this land. In the case of the United Center, it's a bunch of parking lots. And, we have this land that's, not really paying for itself, so to speak, or, not being fully taken advantage of. What if we just built a bunch of stuff on top of the parking lots and just, then you can put the parking on the first floor or wherever else. And so it's another example, to your point, of how if there's money to be invested, the city will play ball if they can see a pretty clear benefit without it requiring a ton of upfront money. So to your point, the Fire want to get this done quickly. They moved really fast on the training center because they didn't really announce that full go before they had made sure they weren't going to have any political or logistical problems. So, I mean, again, it's not done yet, to your point, but I don't see any reason to think they won't. be roughly on that schedule. And it also helps that the Fire are finally on the field looking like they're pointed in the right direction. Even though they're not amazing right now this season, there is clear improvement and a clear new direction. And you can imagine the team likes the idea that around the time this stadium would be opening, that the team should be, they would hope, in a place where they want to be at the top end of the league and competitive at about the same time. And if you could pull that off, if you can open that stadium with a really good product on the field anyway, or even a good product in anticipation of that, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a slam dunk. This is a team that's averaging about 22,000 fans at Soldier Field anyway. So if the team gets better and this is a 22,000 seat venue, yeah, they'll fill the stands every single night.
It's kind of like also another stadium project that's ongoing right now is the one up at the new Ryan Field. They took down the old Ryan Field, and there's going to be about 35,000 seats in there for a Big Ten stadium. And a lot of fans were like, well, why only 35,000? It's like, well, you go off of studies about how you can fill your stadium and give it the best type of atmosphere for your team. And if you can sell 22,000 seats, that's all you need, And, I'm sure there'll be suites and standing room and, the giant jumbotron outside the stadium. There'll be plenty of things that'll be put in for a lot of fans to gather if and when the Fire are on that championship level and team and players or I should say fans want to come out and watch playoff games and be in that atmosphere. That's kind of the end all goal with these types of projects. So yeah, like you said, 22,000 fans there. And if they can in the next couple of months here, if they can somehow manage to get through city council and get through, the politics of Chicago, they're going to have themselves a very valuable piece of property that will no doubt boost the net value of the team. I know right now the Fire aren't worth, a ton when it comes to MLS teams, but a property like this and where you're going to be at will certainly increase your value. So it's a pretty big investment into them and into the city.
It's a big investment. It's a big investment in the team. It's a big investment in Chicago. There are still questions remaining, but I think this is a pretty momentous day for the Chicago Fire, all things considered, and we will continue to cover all future updates on the stadium development and anything else around it here on the podcast. Thanks everybody so much for tuning in to this emergency edition of CHGO Fire. Kevin, thanks so much for hopping in. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to join you, Alex. It's always good talking to you. And yeah, let's get done. This would be a pretty cool project to cover.
Absolutely. Looking forward to hopefully more positive conversations about this future home for the Chicago Fire. That's going to do it for us today, though. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alex Campbell, and I'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.